The humble woman who had just intended to win my favor with 300 million was interrupted by the sound of my goddess confessing her feelings for me inside the room. She thought that I was about to leave her, and her heart shattered into pieces. But then, slap, 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 the sharp sound of several slaps suddenly rang out. One after another, 3 or 4 hard slaps landed on her. Liu Ruyan's once fairly pretty face was instantly swollen and puffy. I suddenly stamped my foot on the armrest of the sofa, pointed angrily at her nose, and shouted, "Shut up right now! 1 kidney, you make it sound so easy. Want me to donate it to him? Fine, I'll give him 1. Dad, you give him 1 too. I'll swap mine out for him. You can feed yours to the dog. If you agree, let's go right now. What do you think?" Liu Ruyan covered her fiery hot cheek, pointing at me furiously and swearing, "Are you out of your mind?" "That's right, I am out of my mind. Otherwise, how could I have ever fallen for someone like you? Luckily, I married the right person. Dad, she's cured all my problems. Open your eyes and take a good look. My wife is 1,000 times more beautiful than you. She's 1,000 times richer than you. I don't like her, but I like you. What do I want? I want you to be a vain, gold-digging woman. I want you to be a shallow person. Or maybe I want you to betray my brother. You're not even willing to give someone a kidney." Outside, Bai Ningbing's body froze in an instant, her head buzzing with noise. Lin Qi! He actually said he liked her? He just begged and called her his wife? This woman, who was always sharp and decisive in the business world, had her face instantly redden, almost as if it were bleeding. Her heartbeat quickened, so fast she could barely catch her breath. Liu Ruyan's expression flickered with panic. This stupid man had actually found out about her and Ah Tang's affair. But soon she composed herself again. "Dad, so what if you know? This man has never been very bright. He's probably just jealous and throwing a tantrum." So she softened her voice and coaxed him. "Lin Qi, are you doubting me? I've already agreed to marry you. What more do you want? Stop making a scene, please. If you hit me, I won't hold it against you. But Ah Tang has been waiting for you in the hospital for a long time. He's especially upset because you won't save him. Come with me to the hospital and apologize to him. Sign the consent form. Is that okay?" At this moment, Liu Ruyan's cheek hurt terribly. Inside, I was seething with anger, my teeth gritting in fury. I secretly vowed that once I signed the consent form, I would make sure these slaps were paid back in full. I looked down at her from a towering height and suddenly kicked her, sending her sprawling to the ground. I shouted loudly, "Someone, give her a good beating. Beat her until she can understand what it means to live." As soon as I finished speaking, before the bodyguards could rush in, Li Shifu excitedly charged over, delivering a barrage of punches and kicks to Liu Ruyan. "Dad, my age is similar to Li's son, and Li treats me like his own child. He protects me like his life depends on it. Li has been doing heavy labor for years, and 1 slap from him could send a wild boar crying." As for Liu Ruyan, this pampered young lady, she was no match for him. Within just a few moves, she was being beaten like a crying ghost. The sound was like slaughtering a pig at New Year's. I felt completely refreshed, and the frustration in my heart instantly disappeared. Even the stuffy feeling in my nose cleared up. Just then, the door was suddenly flung open, along with the bodyguards. Bai Ningbing rushed in. She walked towards me slowly, a bit uneasy. She truly couldn't understand why I had changed so drastically. Whether it was a genuine personality shift, or if I was deliberately putting on a show for her. Perhaps I had some other agenda hidden behind my actions. I stared at the angelic woman in front of me, walking toward me step by step against the light, her face filled with worrying and guilt. It was at this very moment in the past life, when Bai Ningbing caught me kissing Liu Ruyan. Her eyes red, she questioned me fiercely. I still remember how I humiliated her back then. Without mercy, I pointed at her nose and said harshly, "Why can't I be with her? Dad, you worthless man who can't even have children. Do you want to ruin my whole life? Dad, sign the divorce papers quickly. I never want to see you again." At the side, Liu Ruyan seemed to have heard some huge gossip and looked at Bai Ningbing in shock. Then she gave a sneering, disdainful smile. The so-called goddess Bai Ningbing turned out to be a useless, infertile woman. When Liu Ruyan heard this, she immediately straightened her back, and the fear of being caught in the act disappeared without a trace. She reached out, grabbed me, and proudly declared, "Bai Ningbing, you're nothing compared to me. So it's because of a physical issue? Well then, I'll be the one to take care of your husband from now on." Bai Ningbing, usually cold and strong, seemed to be crushed under the weight of a mountain in that moment, her spine almost bending under the pressure. She never expected that I would use her most vulnerable weakness and mercilessly strike her heart. I trampled on her last bit of dignity without hesitation. After that incident, Bai Ningbing's greatest weakness quickly spread like wildfire, and it even made its way to trending topics. In just 1 month, Bai Ningbing quickly became gaunt and aged, no longer the spirited, confident woman she once was. She wasn't afraid of others' gossip or ridicule. What she feared most was being cruelly hurt by the man she loved. Thinking back on all this, my eyes reddened, tears nearly spilling over. Looking at Bai Ningbing again, I saw her delicate features, but they were filled with sadness and pain, emotions that should never have been hers. And all of this was because of me. My heart ached. I couldn't hold back, jumping off the sofa and rushing over to tightly embrace Bai Ningbing. I shouted loudly, "Finally, you're back." Bai Ningbing's body stiffened suddenly. She trembled slightly. After a moment of hesitation, she cautiously stretched out her arms, gently wrapping them around me. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Lin Qi, what's wrong with you?" I felt like a wrong child, clinging to her tightly, whining and murmuring, "Don't speak. Hold me close. Let me feel you more." She obediently held me tighter. I could truly feel her slender arms, her warm, soft embrace, and the hurried, powerful beat of her heart. Thinking back, I remembered how she had once, without hesitation, jumped into the sea with me, just to be by my side. My heart was instantly struck hard, the pain almost unbearable. "Bai Ningbing, I swear in this life I will never hurt you again." Looking over at the side, Liu Ruyan was already beaten beyond recognition, 3 of her ribs broken, lying weakly on the ground, gasping for air, blood continuously pouring from her mouth. I released Bai Ningbing and walked towards Liu Ruyan. Bai Ningbing, seeing this, quickly reached out, gripping me tightly. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something. "Lin Qi, don't go! Please don't get close to her." I smiled and held her hand in return. I pulled her with me toward Liu Ruyan. When we got close, I kicked Liu Ruyan hard. "Hey, you idiot! Why don't you get lost already? You're still being difficult? I'll warn you one more time. I'm already married. Bai Ningbing is my wife. This is our home, my wife and I. Don't even think about coming back here. Still want me to donate a kidney to Ji Bo? Just give up on that idea. Go home and sleep it off. Everything will seem different in your dreams." After I finished speaking, I waved my hand dismissively. I turned to the head of the security team and commanded, "Remember this well. From now on, Liu Ruyan is never allowed to step foot in our house again. Understood?" "Yes, young master." The head of the security team immediately responded. Li, who was standing by, looked worried and couldn't help but murmur, "But what about madam? She won't be able to come in anymore. After all, our own wife is famously so devoted." Exactly. As I watched Liu Ruyan being tossed out by the security guards without mercy, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. But when I turned my head, I saw my wife's face filled with suspicion and gloom. She silently pulled her hand away from mine and turned to head upstairs. Her back exuded a sense of finality. What's wrong with her? Why did she suddenly seem unhappy? I immediately followed her upstairs. Entering the room, Bai Ningbing had a cold, distant look on her face. When she saw me enter, she silently handed me a card. In a calm tone, she said, "This is the 300 million you wanted. Take it to your father. As for your sister's situation, I've already contacted someone. They'll ensure her life is safe. But prison is unavoidable." She said this, her eyes locking onto mine. But her heart sank bit by bit. She fought to hide her pain and said, "Go ahead. Tell me what else you want. You know I can't say no to you. Why bother making all this effort?" My heart was full of sighs and pain. I had hurt her so deeply, and now I truly regretted it. But she no longer believed me. I quickly grabbed her hand and shoved the card back into her hand. With sincerity, I said, "Wife, take this 300 million back. If my father's company goes down, then so be it. Don't worry about my sister. She assaulted someone in public. If you intervene, and people find out, it'll cause a huge impact on both you and your company. From now on, I'll sever all ties with them. Don't worry about it anymore. I've made up my mind. In this world, you're the only one who truly cares about me. You're the only one. I just want to live a good life with you. Will you trust me again?" The corner of Bai Ningbing's eye twitched slightly, her heartbeat suddenly quickening. She stared at my eyes intently, as if trying to find any trace of a lie in my gaze. But all she could see were clear, pure eyes, full of sincerity. But could she still trust me without reservation? A few days ago, I had sworn I would live well with her, and then turned around to ask her for 300 million. Though 300 million might not mean much to Bai Ningbing. If I asked her for pocket money, she wouldn't even blink. But I had used disguise and deception to take money from her, and every time she agreed, I turned back into the indifferent person I used to be, feeling disgusted even when she touched me. I would rush off to the shower immediately. Thinking about all this, my eyes instantly became moist, a layer of mist clouding my gaze. I spoke with deep affection. "Wife, I will prove my sincerity to you. I will sever all ties with those messy people. From now on, my heart and eyes will only have you. I want to live a good life with you. Let's have many cute little babies together. Is that okay?" Bai Ningbing gave a cold smile, taking a half step back, her tone carrying a trace of sadness. "You know I can't have children. Why say these things to hurt me?" Her throat moved slightly as she looked at the handsome and tall man in front of her, so close, as if she could reach out and embrace him at any moment. But she was truly scared. She feared that behind the fleeting sweetness, there would be unbearable pain. I couldn't help but chuckle softly, and reached out to gently hold her waist, leaning close to her ear. I whispered softly, "Whether you can have children or not, how can you know if you don't try?" With a buzzing sound, Bai Ningbing felt a rush of hot blood surge to her head, and she felt as though she was about to lose herself in the rush. She quickly pulled her hand back, turned and faced away from me. Angrily, she shouted, "Lin Qi, don't go too far." But I just smiled, tightening my embrace around her slender waist. Patiently, I coaxed, "Wife, won't you give me a chance to prove myself? It hurts me so much when you act like this." I gently rubbed her waist, as if trying to ignite all the passion within her. Seeing she still didn't respond, I purposely pretended to be deeply disappointed. Sighing, I said, "All right, I understand now. My wife won't forgive me anymore. It seems I'll never be worthy to call you my wife again. I'm sorry, Ms. Liu. I'll leave now. I won't bother you again." After speaking, I slowly released her, turning to leave as if I were truly going. The next moment, the woman suddenly clung to me tightly, her breath hot and scorching. Her body trembled uncontrollably, as if she were as hot as a piece of red-hot coal. She pressed her lips to my ear, urgently asking, "Lin Qi, where did you learn all this? How did you manage to manipulate me so well?" As she spoke, she tightened her arms around me. "You must be lying to me, aren't you? Is it because you want to ask me for something again? Whatever it is, just say it now, before I don't have the chance to hear it anymore." In her mind, I could ask for anything, even her life, and she would give it to me without hesitation. She just didn't want to be deceived anymore, or be made a fool of. I turned around, gently holding her, and placed a soft kiss on her smooth forehead. Bai Ningbing immediately stopped her hurried breath and pulled my hand, her steps urgent as she headed toward the bed. To be honest, Bai Ningbing, who had never experienced such things in her 30 years, was a bit overwhelming in bed. That night in the hotel, she almost exhausted me. On our wedding night, I had drunk so much that I was utterly drunk, and we were intimate again. This time, it was the third. When I finally opened my eyes again, it was already noon the next day. I could feel my entire body aching, and my waist hurt as if it might snap. Bai Ningbing wasn't by my side anymore. I patted my sore waist, stepped onto the weighing scale, and my face immediately darkened. I had somehow lost 3 pounds overnight. This was outrageous. It didn't make sense at all. Looking at myself in the mirror, I thought to myself, actually, I'm no different from before. I'm still that young man, full of masculinity, with my naturally superior bone structure and my incredibly handsome face. This has always been my source of pride. After finishing my wash, I put on my clothes, and as I walked out of the bathroom, I saw Bai Ningbing walking toward me. She stood tall at 1.7 meters, her figure perfectly proportioned, and her face even more beautiful than any female celebrity. But the moment she saw me, she immediately transformed into a gentle spring, her slender hand reaching out, lightly wrapping around my waist. Her face was filled with a look of eager desire to be close to her husband. I deliberately hummed, pretending to ignore her. Bai Ningbing carefully reached out her hand, gently stroking my cheek. Seeing that I didn't resist, she sighed in relief. It seemed that everything from last night wasn't just a dream. She got bolder, her index finger curling, using the knuckle to gently lift my chin. In a soft voice, she asked, "All done washing up?" I blushed, giving a soft hem. I couldn't help but smile, eating to be sure. As soon as I finished speaking, she stood on her tiptoes, slowly leaning in, and softly kissed my lips. In that instant, our lips met, our breaths merging together, our lips rubbed and tangled, the air thick with the scent of hormones, and accompanied by sounds that made both of us blush. After a while, she reluctantly pulled away from my lips, smiling with her eyes. "We're using the same toothpaste. But why does my husband's taste seem sweeter?" I was both embarrassed and annoyed. Reaching out to gently twist her waist, she smiled brightly, like an innocent little fool, grabbing my hand and planting a kiss on it. Then she gently pulled both of my arms, looping them around her waist, and nestled into my chest. In a soft voice, she asked, "Are you tired?" I blushed and stubbornly replied, "I'm not tired at all. My body is strong." After saying that, I gently pushed her away. "Why aren't you at work yet?" Bai Ningbing suddenly lost the warmth of my chest, and her heart felt empty. She stubbornly clung to me again, hugging me tightly. In a coquettish voice, she said, "I'm not going anywhere. If I want to go to work, I will. But if I don't, I'll stay at home and keep my husband company." Hearing this, I couldn't help but adopt the mindset of a 996 worker. I replied, a bit irritated. I don't need you to keep me company. I'm not a child anymore. When she heard this, her heart sank, and she hugged me tighter. Her voice grew muffled, with a hint of grievance. I'm just afraid that if I leave, when I come back, you won't be here. As she spoke, she buried her face in my chest, rubbing it against me. I immediately understood. She was afraid I would suddenly run off again, like before. So she wanted to stay and guard me. A rush of guilt and pain spread through my heart. I gently cupped her face, comforting her softly. Wife, I promise you, I really won't leave you again. She merely nodded in response, clearly not believing my words. An idea suddenly struck me. I leaned close to her ear and whispered something intimate. Bai Ningbing's face immediately turned bright red. She abruptly pressed me against the wall, her eyes filled with a mix of anticipation and urgency. Really? I need to check for myself. Under her scrutiny, I softly replied with a quiet shyly biting my lower lip, turning my face away, though my face was flushed. I didn't stop her from continuing. The redness spread to the back of her ears. I still held her tightly, looking at her earnestly. Wife, I didn't lie to you, right? I'm moved by you. I like you. That's why my body has such a reaction. Now you understand, right? Physiological responses don't lie. I had intended to prove my sincerity to her this way, but it turned out she was testing my endurance instead. At that moment, I suddenly snapped back to reality, woken by the sound of a ringing phone. I grabbed my phone and saw that the caller ID was Liu Ruyan. Oh no! I realized I had forgotten to block her number. After all, from last night until now, I'd been so busy I was dizzy. At first, I thought of hanging up and blocking her. But then I had a mischievous thought, and with a grin, I pressed the answer button. The voice on the other end immediately came through. Lin Qi, have you had enough of this? Liu Ruyan's voice was full of reproach as she spoke, making me instantly furious. After I had rejected her so decisively yesterday, and even beaten her to a pulp, did she really think that this was just a petty quarrel? Did she think I was waiting for her to coax me so I would obediently sign and donate my kidney? I asked back with irritation. Liu Ruyan confidently responded, Isn't that how it should be? I know you were acting yesterday. Bai Ningbing is rich and powerful. Your family needs her help. So you intentionally treated me like that, right? Lin Qi, I'm not blaming you. As long as you come to me, everything I promised you still stands. I'll still marry you. As soon as her words fell, there was a sudden loud noise from the phone. The sound of Wang Tang sobbing loudly, his cries so unbearable it made my teeth ache. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Taking a deep breath, I fought the urge to throw my phone. It's my fault. I should have let Zhu to beat Liu Ruyan up properly yesterday, and then dug a hole to bury her. At least I wouldn't be bothered by her now. But it's fine. Their good days are coming to an end. I've already prepared a big surprise for their family. A gift. Just then, the voice on the other end switched to Wang Tang's. It was hoarse and deep, and he intentionally sounded weak. Lin Qi, please save me. Without your kidney, I really can't survive. I promise I'll work like an ox or horse to repay you. Since we grew up together, please help me out. As he said this, he even sniffled, crying pitifully. Liu Ruyan, though she was holding back her pain and anger, still kept trying to comfort him. But I just chuckled and said, If you're dying, then that's really great. When's the funeral? With our bond, you can't just set up a table for me? After speaking, I burst into laughter. Liu Ruyan immediately snatched the phone and yelled angrily, Lin Qi, you're completely crazy. Ah Teng is your best brother. How can you say such things? Do you have any humanity left? I see you've been brainwashed by Ningbing. You weren't like this before. Want to teach me a lesson again? Still daring to insult my wife? Those days are over. I'm not falling for it anymore. I'll say it straight. Go to hell. I'm not going. If you have the guts, come and grab me. You two are really a perfect match. Scumbag with a scumbag woman, made for each other. A turtle with a tortoise. Perfect. I'll repeat it again. I'm married to my wife. You keep harassing me again and again. Do you know what this is? This is being unreasonable. Do you understand? And still talking bad about my wife? Those broken ribs of yours were a waste. You should have used them to prop up your buddy's nose. Open your eyes and take a good look. His nose is as collapsed as a landslide. Anyone who sees it shakes their head. If you dare insult my wife again, I'll make sure your entire family ends up on a legal program. And still want to marry me? Keep dreaming. After finishing my rant, I decisively hung up the phone and immediately blocked the number. I did it all in one go. Although I felt quite satisfied after the rant, wasting my breath on someone like this really wasn't my style. In reality, I knew perfectly well that Ningbing was secretly listening in. The harsher I scolded, the happier she would be. She was probably grinning from ear to ear. While listening in right now, I stood up and went to the kitchen, planning to make myself some instant noodles. As I walked through the living room, an enticing fragrance wafted toward me. Entering the kitchen, I saw a woman with a graceful figure, intently preparing a meal. She was only wearing a white camisole and shorts. Her perfect S-shaped curves on full display. Her skin was pale and smooth like white jade, and her slender waist connected to her pert hips, while her long, toned legs made me almost lose control. It was Ningbing cooking for me. In the past, whenever she would go out of her way to cook a meal, I would dismiss it, even mocking her for it. I don't dare to eat. What if I eat it and faint again? I might fall into your trap. I'd rather just get hit by a car and die. Then I would turn and leave, letting the food grow cold on the table. But today, Ningbing looked particularly cheerful, a smile always lingering at the corner of her mouth. She must have heard every word of my powerful speech earlier. I couldn't take my eyes off her graceful figure, so excited that I almost burst into tears. In my mind, I silently called out to the system. System, how many fertility points do I have in this world? The system replied with its warm, electronic voice. You have 4. But don't worry, host. Our system is amazing. Having children won't make you uglier, but will actually add to your handsomeness and physique. I nodded in satisfaction, eyeing my wife's stunning figure. I couldn't help but swallow. That slender waist, just a glance made me want to have several children with her, let alone creating love's fruits together with her. I simply couldn't wait. I probably made too much noise swallowing, because Ningbing turned around, her face showing a bit of shyness and nervousness. She softly said, "You're awake? Are you hungry? I'm cooking." My past coldness and sarcasm had left a deep shadow in her heart, which is why she was so afraid I would start mocking and insulting her again. I walked up to her, actually wrapping my arm around her waist and smiling as I asked, "What delicious food are you making?" I could already smell it upstairs. I had barely finished speaking. My stomach growled loudly at just the right moment. This made Ningbing giggle, a soft laugh escaping her lips. The lively and beautiful scene before me was truly heartwarming. Making children with such a beautiful woman, it's surely something everyone would love to see. A funny little moment. Ningbing's body shivered slightly, her palms sweating nervously, but she tried to remain composed as she lifted my chin. I smiled, pinching her cheek gently, and placed a light kiss on her lips. saying something that would make her feel like the happiest woman alive. I'm your husband. From now on, whenever you want to kiss me, it's always okay. She pressed her lips together, and her smile couldn't be suppressed, as if she were overwhelmed with joy. Surprised, she planted another kiss on my cheek, just as she was about to speak. Her phone rang. She picked up her phone and glanced at it. It was a call from a business partner. However, the picture on the caller ID was a cute little girl's smiling face. Naturally, I took the phone from her hand and gently pinched her waist, gesturing for her to take the call with ease. I'll keep an eye on the food in the pot. Bai Ningbing's face instantly turned red, the blush spreading all the way to her ears. She awkwardly walked out to take the call, seeing her shy like this. If her employees saw her, they'd probably never believe it. During dinner, I was filled with curiosity and couldn't help but ask, "Who's the little girl on your caller ID? Is she your secret daughter?" Bai Ningbing almost choked on her food and looked at me with a slightly sad expression. "Lin Qi, you know I can't have children." That's a picture of me when I was a child. When I heard that, I was truly surprised. I hadn't expected her desire for children to be this strong. She couldn't have children herself, but she still looked at her childhood photos to satisfy the longing. Her mind was working in a way I hadn't expected. Wow, this thought process. You really are something, Bai Ningbing. I guess that's what makes you stand out as a successful person. I took her hand in mine, speaking sincerely. Then let's have one together. How about it? Bai Ningbing paused for a moment before slowly replying, "I really want to have a child with you. But Her eyes were filled with unshakable sadness. I held her hand tighter. "Don't say but anymore, wife. Just trust me, okay?" Bai Ningbing forced a smile and composed herself. She turned and tightly grasped my hand. "Thank you, Lin Qi. With my situation, you're still willing to be with me?" She probably thought I was just comforting her, with a heart filled with both bitterness and gratitude. I sighed softly and decided not to explain any further. I really couldn't tell her that I had a system that was bound to make her able to have children. Once her belly started to grow, she would understand I wasn't lying. Hey ha! I really want to see the look on her face when she's stunned and can't even speak. Bai Ningbing might not understand. But two modern men. She's practically flawless. She's beautiful and rich, and so thoughtful to her husband. She lets me swipe her credit cards freely. And several billion, just like that. Her figure is hot. And well, she can't have children. Yes, the point is that she can't have children. It's almost too perfect. Of course, with me around, she'd definitely be able to have children. I have to hold on tight to her and never let this high quality treasure slip away. While I was lost in my thoughts, I absent-mindedly grabbed a shrimp, and the sharp spike on its head pricked my finger. The pain made me gasp, and I couldn't help but say, "Ow." Bai Ningbing immediately furrowed her brows in concern and quickly grabbed my hand to inspect it. She hurriedly pulled me toward the sink to wash my finger, and then found some gauze and bandages to carefully tend to the wound. I grumbled, "You're overreacting. It didn't even bleed. You're making this a big deal. How am I supposed to peel shrimp now?" She shot me a cold glance and said in the sweetest yet firm tone, "From now on, you're not allowed to touch these. I'll do it for you." In the past, she had peeled shrimp for me, but back then, I hated her so much. The shrimp she peeled for me felt like dirty things in my eyes. Bai Ningbing placed the peeled shrimp in my bowl, and I immediately picked it up with my chopsticks and threw it on the floor, even glancing at it. If she ever dared to put it back in, I would throw my chopsticks and walk out. Over time, she stopped doing that. Back at the table, I sat there tapping my finger on the table, clumsily eating with my chopsticks. Bai Ningbing, with her eyes lowered, her pale and slender fingers skillfully peeled shrimp. Soon, she had a full bowl of shrimp peeled and ready, while I was propping up my chin with one hand. bored, poking at my rice with my chopsticks. Sigh! With this stunning, flawless wife by my side, the rice in the bowl suddenly didn't taste as good anymore. Compared to eating, I wanted to admire her more. Bai Ningbing was staring at me intently. A hint of embarrassment appeared on her face. She softly said, "Aren't you craving shrimp? It's all peeled already. Hurry up and eat." I smiled and leaned. I kissed her on the cheek. This sudden octio startled Bai Ningbing, causing the shrimp in her hand to fall onto the table. Her fingertips slightly trembled. She kept swallowing nervously, so tense that beads of sweat appeared all over her body. She softly whispered my name. I picked up a small tomato and placed it into my mouth. Then I reached out and held her, allowing the tomato to gently touch her lips. I gently bit down. The sweet and sour juice spread in my mouth. But even so, in my heart, this taste couldn't compare to even a fraction of hers. At that moment, Aunt G, who had just returned from shopping for groceries, walked by. When she saw our intimate scene, she couldn't help but exclaim. Her mouth stretched into a wide grin. She cheerfully said, "Oh my! The lady and the gentleman are finally happy together. This is truly wonderful. The master will surely be overjoyed when he hears this. Wow, wow, wow. You two are looking. It's like you're a perfect match, like gods and immortals." Aunt Lee smiled with her eyes squinting into narrow slits, revealing a big set of white teeth. She quietly retreated out of the room. In this world, I worked as a small employee in my father's company, simply because I was the son of the boss. The company didn't even pay me a salary. I didn't gain any benefits from being the son of the boss. On the contrary, since I was capable at work, and I was family, my parents trusted me. So they dumped all the tricky tasks on me, made me assist my sister. In reality, the proposals I stayed up all night writing were eventually signed with my sister's name. To accompany clients for chats, I often had unbearable stomach pains. But in the end, it was my sister who got the deal. Anything that would offend people was all left to me. But my sister reaped all the benefits at home aside from taking care of my meals. Even the 3,500 yuan monthly salary was given to my sister. And they even justified it by saying, "You don't have to worry about food and drink. Just tell mom and dad what you want, and they'll buy it for you." In the past, I was led by the nose in this plot, foolishly playing the role of the big sucker. Every day, I worked myself to death in the company, giving my all for the family. But now, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm not going to work anymore. I'm just going to relax comfortably at Bai Ningbing's house, eating and drinking every day, watching dramas, shopping. Hey, you know what? This life is actually pretty damn enjoyable. When the supervisor called to reprimand me, I just ignored it, then blocked their number, and left the group in one go. Finally, I no longer had to endure the unpleasant smell of the boss's breath. I had just handed in my resignation letter, stretched out lazily, when Aunt Lee knocked on my door. She looked like she had something urgent to discuss. I politely invited her in. Aunt Lee quickly said, "Sir, the lady just called. She said she left an important document in the study. You know as well as I do, the lady's study is off limits this time. Everyone except her. She specifically asked you to go in and get the document for her. Her assistant will be arriving soon. Would you mind running an errand for her?" When I heard this, I had a vague feeling this scene seemed familiar. In my past life, it was the same. Bai Ningbing asked me to help her assistant get a document. Back then, I was fooled by Liu Ruyan. Following her instructions, I went into Bai Ningbing's study or office to steal files for her. I foolishly went along with it. Later, it seemed like it caused a huge problem for Bai Ningbing's company. During that time, she hadn't been home for almost half a month, and I took advantage of that time to secretly donate a kidney to my so-called brother at the hospital. In my past life, was Bai Ningbing really so unguarded with me? Even though she knew I wasn't on her side, She still allowed me to go into her study, this restricted area. I hesitated for a moment, and then nodded in agreement. I got up and walked towards the study. Soon after, I unlocked the study door with the code, walked into the study. I looked around. The overall style was a simple white European decor. A thick carpet covered the floor. It felt soft and plush underfoot. The desk was very large, with a computer and some common office tools on it. Countless folders were neatly arranged, ordered by height. They were arranged in sequence like a mobile signal echo. I couldn't help but laugh. I didn't expect Bai Ningbing to have a bit of obsessive-compulsive disorder. I gently flipped through the files, with a smile on my face. However, I didn't know. At this moment, Bai Ningbing was nervously staring at the screen through the hidden camera, closely observing my every move. She appeared expressionless on the surface, calm and composed. But in reality, her hands were tightly clenched into fists. Her nails were digging deep into her flesh, so much that she didn't even feel the pie. Her sexy red lips were tightly pressed together in a straight line. She silently prayed in her heart, "Please don't let me do something that will disappoint her. Please don't let me break the beautiful illusion she has so hard worked to maintain." Bai Ningbing deliberately let me enter the study, because she knew that Liu Ruyan had instructed me to steal her company's files. She was particularly afraid in her heart that I might really do it. If I really did that, then all the kindness I had shown her these past few days would have been fake. It would all be a deception. If it came to that point, she would even think that it would have been better if I had just killed her in the first place. In fact, she was very clear in her heart. She was very likely to fall into my trap again. But what other choice did she have? She had no other option. She could only go down this path with a sense of lonely courage, consciously sinking further. So, I found the specified document on the table. I glanced at the document title. It was exactly what I needed, though. I casually flipped through the well-organized files. This made Bai Ningbing extremely nervous. Her nerves were stretched to the limit. Eventually, I pulled out a file folder from among the many documents. Seeing this scene, Bai Ningbing closed her eyes in pie. The file folder contained all the written materials for a large project the company was about to undertake. If this file were leaked, the company would lose at least 1 billion yuan. Could it be that he finally made a move? For Liu Ruyan, he had once again deceived me, even risking his own body as a bet. Bai Ningbing forced herself to remain calm. She reached for the teacup and gently took a sip. But in the very next second, she lost control of her emotions. The teacup in her hand was crushed in her grip. The scalding tea mixed with bright red blood, flowing down her slender, beautiful fingers. Just though she suddenly saw me on the screen, I was holding a pen, writing and drawing a yellow sticky note. Her hand, which had been raised to turn off the screen,